In this video, we are going to discuss cloud centers of excellence. We will discuss what they are. We will discuss principles for building a cloud center of excellence. And we will talk about the architectural trade-offs of building a cloud center of excellence. So to begin, what is a cloud center of excellence? Now, if we really want to define it, what we're really creating is a cross-functional leadership team that's going to set the strategy for cloud computing. It's going to determine what standards we follow, and it's going to enable teams through various architecture patterns and guardrails to do things faster, assuming they stay inside of the guardrails set forth by the Cloud Center of Excellence. So it's about optimizing the results that an organization gets from its cloud computing spending. Now, the way I like to look at a Cloud Center of Excellence, it is just a governance board. It is an advisory function serving cloud computing, but also balancing it out with business needs and speed versus agility and whatever's necessary to help that organization get to its business goals. So typically in scope for a Cloud Center of Excellence will be strategy and roadmaps, things like cloud landing zones, which we'll talk a little bit about more later, setting up any security by design types of functions, any kind of policy as code, any type of architectural reviews that we'll be doing, and any type of automation or business enabling that we're going to be doing, and of course FinOps to reduce costs. So what goes into setting up a Cloud Center of Excellence? Well, the first thing we need are honestly unbiased, vendor-neutral, capable professionals. In this world, nothing is perfect. There's no vendor that's got the perfect solution. So we need people on this board that are completely unbiased, and they're going to look at things to see what's in the best interest of the business after evaluating on trade-offs. Focus on business results, not I love this vendor. Now, if we're going to make a real center of excellence, and it's going to be strategic, that means we need executives to be part of it. The executives to share challenges that are going on with the business, share needs that are going on with the business, and being there and making sure that if we're going to have this cloud board, that the architects that are there are functioning very hard to make sure we're enhancing the business in some way. So that's going to be absolutely critical that we have executive participation. Now, we don't just need their participation, we need their buy-in and support as well. Meaning if we need funding, we're going to have to get that same funding from those executives, so they should be part of it. But if we also want to implement a new digital transformation effort, it's not going to succeed in most cases unless we've got executive support and buy-in. Now, what we're really trying to do here in this Cloud Center of Excellence is really an outcome-aligned policy. So what we're doing is we're writing governance plans and governance structures to deliver measurable business outcomes. And we need to be able to see and clearly describe what that measurable business outcome is from the cloud computing spending. Is it an increase in revenue? Is it an increase in EBITDA, for example? Is it a decrease in time to market to a new service? Is it a reduction of risk? Is it maintaining some kind of regulatory requirements? So we have to align whatever we're doing, whatever's in our cloud architectural strategy, with the actual outcome from the business. Now, when we set up a Cloud Center of Excellence, what we're trying to do is guardrails over gates, and I'll explain what I mean by this. We're coming up with preventative guardrails to determine what people can do and cannot do. We're setting up governance from the start. And this is typically where we get into like the cloud landing zones, where we can set up a policy as part of what we're actually doing. But in terms of what we're talking about here, this means things like security control policies or organizational policies, things that we're setting in that are going to be enforced programmatically, not in a ticket queue where manually we're doing it one at a time. We want it to be done programmatically the same way every single time to ensure compliance with standards and lack of configuration drift and variation between different org people and the way they do things along the way. So think that kind of landing zone strategy first. Now, I always prioritize security by default in any center of excellence I ever do. And that means all elements about security, whether it's physical security or application security or network security or IAM or zero trust, any of it. Bake it into everything you do from scratch, from the beginning. And that way you'll be secured by default. Now, even though we talked about security, I need you to bring in and really think about data-centric controls. And whether that's preventing data loss, or whether it's things like data classification or data privacy techniques like obfuscation or tokenization, what have you, or encryption by default, or key management, or data residency controls, that really needs to be baked into the Cloud Center of Excellence, especially when there's legal and regulatory requirements requiring for you to do so, especially things related to, say, data sovereignty. Now, as soon as we put these together, or as soon as possible, we need to bring in FinOps. We need to have somebody that's monitoring the spending and determining what we're using and what we're not using and how to optimize that spending. The key to actually not spending too much is generally the best architecture and putting the right workloads in the right place. But we need to constantly monitor, constantly tune, and constantly optimize everything we do. So an automation is policy. If things have to be done in according to a script, like an infrastructure as code script, and everybody had to use a similar infrastructure as code script, we're automating things. We can bake things into those infrastructure as code scripts, like what you're allowed to use, what you're not allowed to do, but deploy guardrails along the way and make sure that things stay with our standard secure configurations. And realistically speaking, we have to set up metrics that we can actually measure that are auditable. I talked about the auditable business metrics before that we have to talk about, but there's also some technical metrics that we want to consider. For example, are we adhering with compliance now better than we did before? Did it used to take us 6 weeks to deploy something and now we can do it in a week and a half? Or we have less deficits or incidents than we previously did? Did our costs go down? Or did we achieve better service level agreements for our clients that are using the systems? So we have to figure out not only business outcomes, but technology outcomes. Now, these are typically the key principles for setting up a Cloud Center of Excellence. Now, nothing is all sunshine and roses. Everything has its architectural trade-offs. So, of course, if you're going to build the Cloud Center of Excellence, there's the trade-offs with doing so, too. Now, the first real trade-off when it actually comes to building a Cloud Center of Excellence is if you're not careful, that becomes a new silo. And in fact, that becomes the new ivory tower. And then you've got your cloud computing center of excellence separated from other parts of the business and even potentially other technology teams. That's probably one of the worst things that can ever happen. So this Cloud Center of Excellence has to be part of the greater organization with representatives on the outside of it. And it really needs to be more about the technology center of excellence. But, think about that. Now, the next thing to think about is the amount of control we put in. If we put in too many guardrails, it will be impossible for people to do their job, potentially speaking. If we don't put in enough guardrails, we've got configuration drifts, we've got increased risks, and we have all kinds of challenges. So what we have to do is we really have to think about when we deploy any guardrail, just like any kind of security policy or anything, does it make sense? And a lot of times these types of boards get very heavy on rules. So you can think of a homeowners association or a condo community getting a little rule centric. So we have to make sure we don't do that. We also have to understand if we're going to set up a Cloud Center of Excellence, it is going to take a lot of work and a lot of resources in the short term. So there's a cost to that. It's going to consume senior management. It's going to take a lot of money. Now, the ROI, generally speaking, if we do it right, comes from the long term. So we have to understand that when we build a Cloud Center of Excellence, that it may take a lot of money up front, and the rewards may be later in time. Now, if we actually think about it, of course, now we're dealing with some best practices, some guidelines, and things that you don't want to do or do. We have to be very careful about standardization versus, say, innovation. Generally speaking, standardized blueprints accelerate about 80% of workloads, which is great, which is the whole goal of what we're trying to do here. Speed it up and control it. But we also have to allow for exceptions and govern exceptions, because we don't want shadow IT going on where people have to work around the systems and then they create their own systems or create a new set of security bottlenecks. We have to be careful, because if the rules or things we give them too standardized, then all of a sudden we find ourselves in that challenge. And then we have to think about demand versus the capacity of the systems. A really successful cloud center of excellence is going to get a whole lot of requests. And this is great because you have people coming from all over thinking about how they innovate. And that gives the Cloud Center of Excellence the opportunity to explore all the requests and prioritize them, and prioritize based upon business value. So now you've got a lot of people coming up with ideas, and the people that are the business decision makers can say, oh, this is going to have a greater impact on our business, and the technical leadership will be with them, people like enterprise architects, for example. So that's really what we're talking about. What is a Cloud Center of Excellence? Some guidelines and best practices, and the trade-offs to think about, or the considerations to think up when you set up an architecture center or a cloud DOS center of excellence, or a cloud architecture center of excellence. If you have a desire to become a cloud architect or an enterprise architect or an AI architect or a security architect, we run architecture webinars twice per week. We'll go over the skills you need for each of these architecture careers, and we'll talk about what it takes to stand out and get your first enterprise architect job, cloud architect job, security architect job, AI architect job. And these webinars are live and free on Zoom, so you can ask me any type of tech career questions you have, and I'll answer them in real time. You want me to check in, see if you're ready for an interview? I'll check that real time. You want me to see what your competency is, or you're ready, job ready? I'll check that out for you too, all on these free webinars. You can register for our free architecture webinar in the description of this video. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell to be notified of new videos to help in your enterprise architect career, or security architect career, or AI architect career. And tell a friend if you found this video was helpful to you in your career, because I hope it could be helpful to them as well. This is Mike Gibbs signing off for now. I hope to see you in a new webinar where I can see you live and free on Zoom, or in another video. Take care.